I used to think that I was a businessman or entrepreneur, but I realized that I am an adventurer. I am an explorer in life and also explorer of the world. And what I want to do is share my story, share my experience as a tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, as an immigrant to this country, as a motorcycle traveler all over the world, to encourage people to embrace the adventure in their own life, in whatever activities that they're into, to find better versions of themselves.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi there, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. My special guest today is Michael Yang, who is both entrepreneur and adventurer. Michael says this, here's a quote written about Michael. Michael's life is a testament to the truth that adventure is not a destination, but a way of being. Adventure doesn't wait for holidays or perfect plans. It whispers from the Arctic back roads and from echoes through the Silicon Valley boardrooms. It lives in the hearts of those bold enough to say simply, "Let's do this." Michael's story offers a roadmap for anyone still seeking meaning beyond their resume and proving that their 60s are the perfect time for a radical new beginning. Can't wait to hear more from Michael. Michael, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, and I want to talk about adventure and your love for bike riding and your book, Coming Alive on the Ride. Isn't that your new book that's just coming out?
That's correct. Yes. It just got published last month. It's available on Amazon or anywhere where the books are sold.
Well, let everybody know it's in the show notes, and all you have to do is click the link that says here, and it will take you right to Michael's book. So you can take a look at it and purchase it, which would be a grand idea. But before we get into sort of the adventure part of your story, you told me when we had the phone call that in the later 90s, before, .com was still a boom, that you started a company and in 2 years sold it for $700 million. And so,
That's right.
I told numbers. I probably shouldn't have told numbers. Forgive me for telling numbers, but you sold it for a lot of zeros.
Yes.
So my friend, who is also very wealthy, says, "Charlie, you got to ask him, how in the world did he do that? Did he build a company in 2 years that he can sell for so profitably?" Can you tell us a bit about that? What's the story around
Sure.
that?
Yes. So this was a company that I founded in Silicon Valley back in 1998. That was when internet was in a real boom, kind of like what AI is today.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
was 36 years old. I had been working and living in Silicon Valley for about 20 years now. I had come from Korea with my family when I was 14 years old, and so anyway, I was working in the tech industry in Silicon Valley when internet.
You're an engineer, right? Is that
I was
correct?
trained as an engineer. I went to Berkeley, studied electrical engineering, computer science, and my first
Okay.
job out of grad school was in engineering, designing computer chips. And so I come from that tech and business background, and I founded a company called MySimon.com. It was an online price comparison shopping site. And it was just an idea, and me and my partner, who was a co-founder, he was the engineer who developed the website. I was the sort of the visionary and the idea
Okay.
person who came up with the idea. And the idea was to help consumers compare prices easily when they're shopping for products online, whether it's digital cameras or electronics or anything that you could
Sure.
buy, because their pricing is all different at different stores. And so, with $25,000 in savings that I had, we started this company, and we quickly developed a website, found an angel investor who invested $500,000. And then we developed the site more and started getting traction. And we started having thousands of customers and users. And we raised another round of 1.5 million, and then 3 million after that, and then 25 million in the fourth round of venture capital financing. And so we grew from zero in revenue to about $100,000 in monthly revenue in 2 years. And we were getting ready to do an IPO on NASDAQ stock market because the things were really heating up on the internet.
Right.
That's when another company called CNET in San Francisco made an offer to acquire our company. And so we ended up selling the company for $700 million in CNET stock. It was a stock swap deal.
Okay.
And so I owned about 17% of the company at that time. And it was a huge exit for me and everybody involved with the company, including investors and employees. Now, soon after the acquisition closed, the dot-com bubble burst, and the price of CNET stock dropped, along with all the other dot-com companies like Amazon and eBay and all the other Yahoo. And so the exit was not as big as what it could have been if the stock market kept up, but because of the dot-com crash, it sort of shrunk a lot in value. But still, it was a $700 million acquisition when the deal closed in February of 2000.
That is absolutely amazing.
It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I was very fortunate to be at the right time, at the right place in Silicon Valley when dot-com was revolutionary. It was world-changing technology. Today, we think nothing of internet, but it was a new thing back then, and we were one of the pioneers in the online shopping price comparison space.
Oh yeah, was that your vision to be in the online shopping space? Because
yeah, so I write about
brilliant.
Yeah, I write about this in my book, Coming Alive on the Ride. As an immigrant, I was always looking to save money. And so when I would be shopping for electronic stereos or audio system, I would compare prices across different stores to try to find the lowest price. So that habit became a business idea and an opportunity when internet became this huge online retail mall or e-commerce. And so, I wanted to create a website where we could aggregate all the different prices of different products across thousands of online retailers so that when you're shopping for something, you could come to this website and type in what you're looking for, and we show you all the pricing information so you could order it from the lower price. And so that was the idea. It was an extension of how I used to shop when I was young, being new to this country without any money and without speaking much English as a new immigrant.
Let's we had talked about this before, and this is it's a very natural podcast, a very natural show, and where I have a script. I actually have more of a script with you than I've had with my last 10 guests of questions that I want to ask you, but there is one that's kind of at the bottom. But you talked about the importance and maybe even the impact of the cultural differences between North Korea and China and the United States, and said those were significant for you. Can you describe some of that, and how that impacted your life and your business and just what you're doing?
Yeah, so we could spend hours talking about this topic, but I was born and raised in Seoul, South Korea.
Okay.
And I moved to the United States when I was 14. So I sort of have a bicultural, bilingual sort of experience living in two different continents. One in Asia, which is a big continent, and another which is North America, which is, another big continent. But in looking back in my life, I realized the culture of the East is very different than the West. So
Right.
the Asian cultures and values are very different than the Western. So one very simple example is, the sort of the value of family versus value of individuality or individualism, right? That's just one of many, many different.
And that was the first thing I thought of, Michael, is I went to Japan this last summer, and as we were studying culture, that was the one big difference, that, America is so individual, and the Asian cultures, Japan, and I'm sure
Yes.
North and South Korea and China are very family, and also government. It's more of a community orientation.
Exactly. More communal, right. More, so you sacrifice a little bit of individual desires for the good of the community or the group that you're in. And so it's a real, it was a real eye opener for me to see how the individual rights and individual is much more valued and important in the Western culture than it is in the Eastern culture. And it is one of the major differences between, Asian countries like China, South Korea, Japan, and United States, right? And so it's not that, I don't think there's a perfect system, but, one country values individualism much, much bigger in the United States than it is in China and South Korea. And so, one of the ways that manifests itself is the homelessness problem that we're experiencing in LA and throughout the United States. The homeless problem is nowhere as big in Asia, whether it's South Korea, Japan, or China, than it is in the United States, because in Korea, I can speak for South Korea, there is a lot more government subsidies, and people are really encouraged to seek these public housing that are very inexpensive. And so the government puts some incentive and a pressure for them to live in these places, whereas in America, that individual's freedom and right to live on the street is paramount. And so you have hundreds of thousands of people living on the street, doing drugs and all kinds of other things that creates a societal problem. And so that's one of the ways that this value of family versus individual, value of the community versus individual manifests itself between two different continents and two different countries.
That's a great insight. That's a great insight, because I wonder how many homeless people have families that could actually take care of them if the families wanted to take care of them.
That's right. And
whereas in Asia, in Japan and Korea and South Korea, the families are going to take, their families are not going to let
I would say in
homeless.
much higher percentage, the families support each other, take care of each other than it is in America, where it's so much more individualistic.
Okay, so we covered our basics. Now I want to get into the fun part. I want to get on to coming alive on the ride, or with the ride, on the ride.
On the ride.
Coming alive on the ride. And the ride, I take it that you're using the ride sort of double entendre, that the ride includes life in general, but also with you, there's a very specific meaning to the ride for you. Explain that specific meaning for the ride.
I'm so glad that you picked up on that, Charlie, because it is a metaphor of both motorcycle travel and riding, but also a life journey. Right. Life is a ride. And so my book, Coming Alive on the Ride, is a combination of my life journey stories, coming from South Korea as a 14-year-old teenager without speaking English, without any money, and having to adjust to a completely new world, and eventually succeeding in Silicon Valley. And in my late 50s and 60s, this rediscovering my love of riding motorcycle, which is something that I did as a out of place teenager when I was 15 years old in San Jose, California, and going on cross continental motorcycle trips from LA to Alaska to LA to Newfoundland, and then down to South America in Patagonia. And so
Didn't you do a trip in Europe, or is that the next one you have planned?
Yes, my next trip that I'm planning right now is to go to Northern Europe this summer and ride about 10 different countries around Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. I want to ride all the way up to Nordkap, Norway, which is the northernmost point of Europe, and then come down on the Finland side along the Russia border and Baltic states just to tour that area of the world. And so, yes, it is a very much of a metaphor of both motorcycle riding, but also a life journey, because that is another important part of my life, my story.
You talk about this. You say that to pursue or embrace adventure is a great way to learn about yourself. And then you also mentioned to me that it's very meditative for you, that the motorcycle ride is very meditative. So that is your time of meditation is riding. Do I get that correctly?
Yeah. Yes. So when I'm riding motorcycle long distances, I'm riding 300 to 400 miles a day, and so I have a lot of time on the road. And a lot of times, I am so excited about my experience of riding across these beautiful mountains and deserts, and I ask myself, how did I become so lucky to be able to enjoy this? This is such a wonderful experience. And then I ask myself, well, how did I get here? Who am I, and why am I here for? And so, yeah, so. To me, I found myself on the road while I was traveling on a motorcycle because I was asking these questions and answering them on my own by going back to my childhood, how that shaped me as a person, my days in Silicon Valley as a tech entrepreneur, and how that sort of allowed me the financial freedom to pursue these motorcycle travels around the world, and discovering what my not only my identity, but my purpose in life.
So let's get personal. Who are you, and what do you want to do? If you've answered those questions, you've answered the questions of philosophy.
That's right. So I used to think that I was a businessman or entrepreneur, but I realized that I am an adventurer. I am an explorer in life, and also explorer of the world. And what I want to do is share my story, share my experience as a tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, as an immigrant to this country, as a motorcycle traveler all over the world, to encourage people to embrace the adventure in their own life, in whatever activities that they're into, to find better versions of themselves.
On this last trip to Japan, I came across a quote that I probably, as I say affectionately, I probably bastardized the quote. And so I've made it my own quote rather than what it was exactly, but it's a wonderful quote. It says, "I no longer take vacations to sightsee, but I go on pilgrimages to experience wonder."
I love that.
So it's the same amount of time. It's not a difference in time, not even a difference in necessarily in where you're staying or how you're staying, but it's a total difference in attitude. That am I going? Like, for instance, I've been to Paris a few times, and the last time I was in Paris, I had no desire to sightsee. I've seen the museums, I've seen the Eiffel Tower. I've seen what you're supposed to see. What I did this time was stay in the back French communities of Paris, and so I stayed intentionally in an Airbnb that was hosted. It wasn't me in place by myself. I went with the host, got to know the host. They kind of guided me through the town. They didn't walk with me, but they gave me ideas of this is what I would do if I wanted to understand Paris as a local and understand locals, not as a tourist, but so I could experience the wonder of life in Paris. And it was a beautiful time. It was just wonderful.
Great idea. I love that quote that you heard in Japan. I'm similar in that it's boring for me to go to big cities and stay in fancy hotels and eat fancy food. That's, to me, not that interesting. I would rather go explore new places, hopefully with beautiful nature, or just culturally interesting, something to learn about the history of the people, about the region, about the unique sceneries of that area. There's so many beautiful places around the world. And so I'd rather sort of see myself as an explorer who is exploring a new area, learning about new things that I didn't know before. And rather than sort of, join a tour group and go through a predefined itinerary with, they do everything for you and you just sort of sit there and go through this program. That to me is boring. I'd rather plan my own trips to these places that I want to explore and learn about. So it's sort of conquering the land without axe and swords. You're conquering with your eyes, with your iPhone, taking photos, talking to people, and really this understanding something, learning something new that you didn't know before.
I had a person take me through, and this was several years ago, Michael. Oh my goodness, we're probably closing in on a decade ago, who did my archetypes. And there were 9 archetypes that she did. My first archetype was exactly that, was explorer. And even if I don't travel, I view just exploring, just life every day, I view myself as an explorer, just discovering, always, my life intent every year, my life intent, sort of my New Year's, I guess you could call it my New Year's resolution, but I call it my life intent, is to experience wonder. I am blown away by just the wonder of life and people, architecture, geography, topography. That's
wonderful.
It's just part of who I am. So I can identify very much with what you're saying.
We're very similar in that way. I see myself as an adventurer, as an explorer, just to put myself out there and learn something new, do something different, and experience the world in a more exciting way. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, and I also like to say, Michael, it's not just the world, it's my particular world. It can be I don't have to leave the country. I mean, now that's a whole different experience, and we have a trip coming up. We have, 3 trips coming up. We've got a trip to Iceland, and then we have a trip back east, and then we have a trip to Vietnam, to just to experience, there's reasons we're going, but just to experience what the world is all about. And it is just magnificent. And it's not about a checklist. I no longer have checklists. This is what I want to see. I don't even know when I'm going to Iceland. I'm on a cruise, and my wife has booked the excursions. I don't even want to know. I have no idea. I don't care. I just know I don't want to be on a bus for 8 hours. So don't put me on an excursion with a bus for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, or I guess, when you're on a cruise, there's no such thing as a bus for 8 hours, but for 5 hours or 6 hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to be out there with the people, with the sights, with what's going on, to experience it.
That's great. I think that's more exciting. And I go on my trips with my family, and my wife is not as adventurous as me. So she prefers to stay in a nicer hotel and go check out, nice shopping malls and museums and concerts, and I enjoy that to some degree. But my preference is to be in the nature, traveling through new areas that I haven't been to before, and experiencing the local culture, the food. Do what locals do, and learning about the history of that place.
I think it's a hard sell. I'm going to have to get your book. I think it's a hard sell to teach to try to sell to people in our culture the idea of traveling the way we do, because I too, like your wife and like you, I like nice hotels with nice food, or nice, I like being taken care of, but I also like living out there where it's not that. It's exactly the opposite of that. It's rural and it's regular and it's everyday. And these are everyday local people that I'm interacting with.
You're right.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's part of what I want to try to help change a little bit. In that, I sort of think that America is sometimes an island, though it's a huge country. Because I don't know the statistics on this, but I think majority of Americans have never been out of the country. And that's one of the reasons why I want to try to encourage people to embrace adventure in whatever that means in your life. But one of them could be doing a solo travel in new cities or new states they've never been to before, or going to another country that you have never been to before, just to experience that different culture and different people. So then you will learn more about their people, and make the world a better place because you have a better understanding. Because a lot of problems in the world happens because of people just don't know the other people, and they become fearful of them, and that could be a beginning of problems, conflicts. Because when people don't know each other, they may not make best decisions. That includes going to war with countries just because of differences.
yeah, I so agree, and I'm thinking also trying to convince people. You know what you and I have both experienced that you have to experience to enjoy, and that is traveling by yourself. That doesn't that
Yeah,
doesn't that doesn't go well with families. My wife, when I would, she usually, I took a long trip to Europe, and which included Norway and Tromsø, which is one of the most northern cities in the world, and
right,
just so I could see the lights.
right,
And it's too cold. She says this is just too cold for me. So I went by myself, and I traveled one other time through Europe by myself, and I really think there is something to traveling alone. Now, is it because we're introverts and that we don't need people to be with us, or we can't, because I think both of us maybe are introverts, but at the same time we're very social introverts, that we can get along with new people and meet new people and become part of that group. But I don't. But talk to me about traveling alone as opposed to taking your family. How
yeah.
different
So
that
yeah,
is.
I enjoy doing both. I enjoy traveling with my family, and
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that. It's special kind of a time and experience to travel with the family. And I also love traveling by myself sometimes, because it is also a very special time and experience to travel alone. And I encourage my children to travel together with family, with friends, but also travel solo sometimes, because it's a different experience. And in a lot of ways, it helps you grow as a person by traveling solo. And so I've done it many times in my life, and I love the experience. And I realized, wow, it is very special to travel alone, especially into new countries that you have never been to before. So it's a bit scary, bit because there are a lot of unknowns and people are scared of unknowns. But if you just like do the research, maybe there's somebody that you know who could help you, whether it's Airbnb host in a new country that you have not been to before, like your Airbnb host near Paris, or you may have some friend or somebody that you know in another place, and they wouldn't mind sort of showing you around a little bit if you get into that country or that town. So that's a great opportunity. So just generally, traveling alone is just a completely different experience, and I really encourage people to try it. And I've done it many times, and I think it made me a better person, made me learn more about who I am and why I'm here.
I was in Amsterdam, and I was by myself. I looked at a map and got an Airbnb. This was not hosted, though. I don't think this was hosted. No, I think I was by myself in a small Airbnb, kind of an apartment kind of complex. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it, and it looked like everything was within 2 or 3 miles of each other of where I wanted to go, because I wanted to see the city of Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't trying to get on the outskirts. I was trying to stay in the city. And I kind of got a map that said, here's where, I don't even know which side I was looking at. I don't know if it was a museum or whatever. I was looking at something, and I ended up walking out the door, and I said, I'm going this way. And I just put on my backpack and I just started walking, and I didn't walk down main streets. I walked down side streets where, there's clotheslines across the street and clothes hanging off, and just walking amongst the people. And, I saw what I wanted to see, which was just Amsterdam. Amsterdam, by the way, is such a fascinating place. Have you been there?
I've been there. I traveled around Europe on a backpack right after college when I was 21 years old, and I just loved it. I had a Eurail pass, a youth hostel pass, and that's all I needed. I could go from city to city, from Paris to Rome, from Rome to Vienna, from Vienna up to Heidelberg, Germany, and just everywhere. And I stayed at youth hostel that cost me $5 a night.
I know, yeah.
It was a wonderful experience to travel alone through Europe when I was so young, and that was part of the shaping of who I am, and that made me want to go on these motorcycle travels by myself to different parts of the world.
That's so your children, you're encouraging your children now. Remind me how old your children are.
So my oldest son is 22 years old now. He graduated from college like a year or two ago. And then my second one, Emily, is 18 years old. She's in freshman in college. And we have 2 young ones in high school still. So we have 4. And for example, last summer, my family and I went to Korea and Japan on a 3-week trip. And then after that, I encouraged my son to travel alone. So he actually went back to Japan, stayed in Tokyo, and hiked up Mount Fuji by himself, which was a real good challenge. And then he flew to Thailand and spent a few days in Bangkok and in Phuket, and he came back. So he spent almost 10 days traveling by himself after the family trip was done, and he loved that experience. So
yeah, what was the feedback? What was his experience?
Oh, I mean, I think hiking up the Fuji mountain by himself was life-changing. It gave him such a confidence about him, what he could do. And also traveling through Thailand, in Bangkok and Phuket, getting to ride on the back of a moped, which is like a taxi over there, was a great experience. So, I mean, he just loved traveling by himself, and it was a completely new experience for him. But yeah, he loved it. He loved the sort of the challenge and the unknowns of traveling alone into new countries and new places. But I think he came back changed, and yeah, so he loves it, and I'm encouraging my daughter, who's 18 years old, to go travel with our family together, go travel with friends, but sometimes try traveling by yourself, just even for like a couple of days or 3.
How does she respond to that at first,
Yeah,
honestly?
I think she's thinking. I think she's open. So she's a bit risk-taking type, and she's kind of adventurous. So I think she'll do it. I think with my encouragement, she'll do it. Solo trip before she turns 20. I'm willing to make a small bet that she will.
Make a small bet. That is wonderful. That's very special. There's this there's this assessment instrument that I feel, I've taken. My wife is a used to be a career counselor, now is a executive coach, and she does a lot of different assessment tools, and I'm the guinea pig. I will go through these assessment tools, and I
Uh-huh.
took one assessment tool that I think it's called VIA VIA character assessment or something like that, and it has your five. It gives you 25. It has 25 options of what your character is, and it prioritizes your top 5 and your next 10 or whatever. Well, among my top 5 are curiosity, learning, and creativity. And those just hone in so well in individual travel or any kind of travel that
That's awesome.
I'm curious, I want to learn, and I'm creative. I'm going to figure out some way to do something with nothing or with whatever little that I have.
Yes. No, that's great. I think that makes you or keeps you young because of your curiosity, and you have a desire to learn. You're creative. You have a desire to explore, and so I'm sure you're living a pretty fulfilled life right now.
I
Uh,
do.
yeah, even this podcast, the next chapter, I think it's a great topic because we all reach a point in our life where we need to move on to the next chapter. And so doing that effectively, I think, can make a huge difference in how fulfilled you are in pursuing that sort of, next chapter in life.
Let's do this. We're coming in on closing out time, and I want to wrap up. But what I'd like to do is because especially what you just said, it's in response to what you just said about the quote that I read earlier, that you say you offer, that your story and your book offers a roadmap for anyone seeking meaning beyond a resume and proving that your 60s are the perfect time for radical new beginnings.
Yes.
Tell me about the 60s, self-discovery and radical new beginnings. How do they all come together?
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate in that I am at a place in life where I could afford to travel, afford to do kind of what I want to do instead of having to work to support myself or the family. Now, as long as you could support yourself, I discovered that I love the adventure, whether it's motorcycle traveling or going on a family adventure trips, or whether it's writing a book to share my story, or even pursuing being a YouTuber, which is something that I'm learning how to do right now. But I realized through my travels, through my life journey, that I love to inspire people to embrace the adventure. Don't get stuck on the fear. Get over it. Embrace the adventure. Challenge yourself a little bit. Put yourself in a little uncomfortable position, as long as it's not going to kill you, because that's how I discovered my identity as an adventurer and as a motivator, as an inspirer, to get other people to go embrace the adventure to find better versions of themselves. And so that to me is my new calling in my sort of next chapter of my life, to pursue my calling as an inspirer, to inspire other people
Oh,
to go out and seek adventures.
So are there more books? Are there lectures? What are you thinking of?
So I am, sharing the story of my life through my book, and also, encouraging people to step out of their comfort zone to embrace the adventures. I'm also, speaking at different gatherings at whether it's classrooms or mentoring events or any gatherings where they want me to come and share about my Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur experience, starting a company and selling it for 700 million in less than 2 years, sharing my motorcycle travels across North America and South America in my 60s. And I'm also trying to create more videos of my motorcycle travels and upload that into the YouTube channel. And so I'm doing all these things because this gives me joy. I feel like I'm making the world slightly a better place by encouraging people to go out and travel and go out and discover new things that they didn't know before, because that in itself will make the world a better place.
I'm tempted to ask you a question that I don't know. In all the years that I've done shows, this is so rare for me to ask this question, but you opened, because here I said that was the last question. I lied. This is the last question. Mm-hmm. You opened our conversation by describing to me that you are a strong man of faith, that the person of Christ is strong in your life.
Yes.
How does this impact your attitude? I'm not looking for a sermon on why people should be believers, but how your faith, how your belief system impacts being the explorer and adventurer and curious seeker.
Yeah, so I think it impacts me in two ways. One is that because of my faith in Christ, faith in God, I am encouraged to pursue these adventure travels that are sometimes scary for me. Will it be okay for me to travel 40 days by myself on a motorcycle through, Norway and the Arctic, region of Norway? So there's that comfort and confidence that I gain with my faith, because I believe that God will protect me and God gives me the strength to do what I'm planning to do. The second thing is, God calls me to love one another, love your neighbors. And so I try my best to do that, not only by, being nice and kind to people around me and helping out when I can, but also just sharing the message of my book, which is to embrace the adventure, because you'll find better version of yourselves. So in some way, this is sort of what I'm created to do. As a motivator, as an encourager, as an inspirer for other people.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. You have such, I imagine listening to you on the show. I imagine you're a wonderful presenter, and that you are indeed inspirational and motivational. And I wish you the very best. I think I support your message. I think you're doing wonderful things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Michael, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on the show with me today. It's been such fun.
Oh, it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity to come in and share my story with you today.
Absolutely. And I want to remind everyone, because this just sounds so poignant, to check out Michael's book at Amazon, Coming Alive on the Ride. And I think I got a feeling this is a good one. I don't always recommend books, but this one sounds like a good one, so I'm recommending people check this out. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off.
Thank you.
Bye for now.